test driving a 2007 Ford Mustang to see how the brakes feel before I pop the wheels off and check. It has about 40,000 miles on it. The owner of the vehicle says it has a little bit of a squeak. In just a second, we'll get the wheels off and see. A good way to gauge whether or not you need brakes is to check your fluid level. This one is still a lot closer to the max than the minimum. It's less than half empty. There is a sensor in the bottom of the master cylinder reservoir that when the fluid gets low, it'll turn the brake light on, and that's an indication that you need to have your brakes inspected. Let's get the shoes off of this horse and see what's going on. I'm using a brake pad thickness gauge to check the thickness of the existing pads on the vehicle. This is a new pad for the rear. It's 10 millimeters thick. The front pads are 8 millimeters thick. The rear pads are only 4 millimeters thick, and the manufacturer's minimum is 3 millimeters, so it's time to go ahead and replace them. Remove the 2 caliper bolts with a 13 millimeter. Slide the caliper straight off. Then you can unbolt the caliper bracket. The caliper bracket comes off with 2 15 millimeter bolts that are holding it in place. If you're not replacing or resurfacing the rotors, there's no need to take it off. The last thing you have to do if you're removing the rotors is to get this clip off. You can use pliers or side cutters. Don't be afraid to break it because it's useless. Throw it away. This caliper operates hydraulically through the brake hose and mechanically through the parking brake cable. And you can't just compress the piston straight in like you would a traditional front caliper. You need a special tool like this one, or better, that will rotate the caliper piston because it's threaded. Install the tool like this, rotate the end of it to push the piston back into the caliper so the new pads will fit. Make sure that once you get the piston pushed in, you've got these notches straight up and down so that when you install the caliper on the pad, that this little tab sticking out of the back of the pad lines up in that notch. You need to get all the brake dust cleaned off of the anti-rattle clips right here. Make it nice and shiny like this, and then put a little bit of anti-seize on it where the brake pad comes in contact with it. That will cut back on some of your noise. Also, make sure the slide pins move freely on both sides. Now you're ready to reinstall the rotor and then the caliper bracket. Tighten the bolts down. Once you've got the caliper bracket bolted on, set the pads in place. Just keep an eye on these little springs when you install the caliper. You want to make sure that those are straight and both making contact with the caliper. Otherwise they'll get stuck in this hole. Tighten those bolts down. Okay, the passenger side's finished. Do the same thing on the driver's side and you're ready to put the wheels back on. Okay, check your brake fluid level. Make sure you don't overflow it when you push the caliper pistons in it. Close the hood. Get ready for test drive. Okay, I've got the car put back together and on the ground. I'm ready to test drive it, but there's one more thing I need to do. And I've got some helpers with me today. What is the last thing you got to do before you test drive a car after doing a brake job, Emily?
Pump the brake!
You're right. So I'm going to pump up the pedal until it gets firm. There we go. Check the parking brake. Yep. Ready to drive. Okay, I've made a couple of slow stops. Everything feels good, no noises, no squeaking, no grinding, no whining. Okay, it did good on the slow stops. I need at least one good stop from above 45 miles an hour to make sure there's no pulsation or vibration coming to a stop. Yeah, nice and smooth. We are finished.